Hello, welcome back to Aetheral Space 12.3. 8 phases, 10 nebula, 1 plan, no chance.
And if you had to say that there was one thing in Shonen Jump that inspired you when it came to this series,
Kagurabachi, of course.
the number one manga, father of the big three, the big one, as it's now being colloquially called.
Let's be fair to the semi-finalists, but this big one.
Welcome back. Today is not about Kagurabachi, it's about Aetheral Space, Arc 12. We are on Chapter 12.3, 8 phases, 10 nebula, 1 plan, no chance. Are you already?
And 10.
Musashi shivered, Dragon gulped, Skipper shuddered, the Supreme squeaked. Are you ready for your peak lessons? Yes, Kagurabachi.
Is that, like, it's not even his fucking name.
No, I don't remember his name.
His name is Kagurabachi now.
It's just Kagurabachi. There's a lot of phlegm in my throat. Aetheral Yggdrasil. 8 phases of the turning of the air. Supremacy space. Aetheral Yggdrasil. Headquarters and founding member. Headquarters?
Oh.
Is he a building? Is he?
Let's keep going.
Aetheral Yggdrasil, headquarters and founding member of the 8 phases of the turning of the air, drifted through space. Ever since the fell beast had re-emerged from the body of the new moon, its own form had expanded greatly. The humanoid body plan had been abandoned utterly in the process, and now, as it sailed through the stars, it looked like nothing less than a gargantuan pine cone. What would happen if he died and, like, withered away? They'd all just be fucked in space. They don't have a game plan outside of Aenir? Tan?
Well, there's like, well, we'll get into it.
Hallways and chambers existed within him, sustained by Aenir's biological processes and the few cybernetic enhancements it had allowed. It would be tempting to wonder whether its wooden skin was really suitable as the hull of a starship. Tan's always 2 steps ahead of me, guys. But to think Aetheral Yggdrasil was just made of wood would be the same as thinking it was just a tree. In short, foolishness. It held out against the cold and the dark without fail. Yes, without fail. As the shuttle docked within it, the waxing crescent moon resumed its flight, carrying the supreme air and all the other phases within it. Aw, nice! What was his voice again? It was like...
It was sort of like... It was a little bit like this.
That was a good fight back there, Morgan Noct said to his commander, as the two of them ascended the long stairs to the main chambers. So how does the power level go? Is it like the closest you are to the full moon is the stronger you are?
There's not necessarily a strength ranking in there.
Oh, it's just they picked them arbitrarily?
Yeah, basically, and then 3 slots got assigned as new people joined.
How are you feeling? As Musashi walked alongside him up the steps, only the masked half of his face was visible. Musashi shouldn't be the full moon, he should be a half moon. He's half-phased. He's two-phased. Musashi wondered vaguely how he must seem to Morgan, when not a flicker of emotion could be seen. Cold, perhaps? Robotic? His voice, calm, measured, wouldn't do much to dispel that illusion, if so. A good fight would have ended with less corpses. I did what I could. I made it to the inner melee. Wasn't that bad, then? Morgan smirked, purple wardrobe swishing against the uneven ground beneath him. Isn't this kind of awkward, though? Because the whole point of the phases is they protect the air. But, in theory, Musashi would have to fight a Clima, right? Well, I guess you don't have to kill them, right? You just have to make them surrender, because didn't the Abyssal Knight before he was Abyssal surrender?
Yeah.
So I guess he could just, like, beat her into submission.
Yeah.
I guess that's what he was assuming. Wasn't that bad, then? Morgan smirked, purple wardrobe swishing against the uneven ground beneath him. The interior of Aetheral Yggdrasil was unsettlingly biological, hallways more like veins than anything else, but Morgan Noct never seemed to stumble or lose his way. Sometimes, in the late hours, Musashi would see Morgan standing by himself in some distant corridor, listening to what seemed like nothing. He supposed it made sense. Morgan Noct and Aetheral Yggdrasil had a unique connection. For a time, the two of them had been one, after all. At any rate... Oh, sorry, this is Musashi. At any rate, Musashi went on, I should receive word of the inner melee location shortly. Once I do, I'd like for you to speak with Aenir, and he didn't get to finish his sentence. Is it going well, Commander Musashi? A harsh voice cut through the air. Your quest to steal my throne? Well, Musashi thought. This was to be expected. At the top of the grand staircase, glaring down at him, stood the supreme heir Aklaima. Her black hair was tied back into a ponytail, just like his, and her golden eyes glinted in the light. Is she pugnant?
She has like a little bit of pugnant.
Oh, okay. She crossed her arms as Musashi ascended. The black and purple dress she wore, a stark contrast to the natural environment around them. You misunderstand my intentions, my heir, Musashi said gruffly, not quite meeting her gaze. As a warrior, it's my duty to seek the office of Supreme. I mean no trespass against you. Aklaima raised an eyebrow. She did not smile. The Supreme Heir did not smile often these days, and when she did, it was insincere, a twist of the dagger. Can you just give him a fucking break? How about a break? Alright?
The teenage years.
Oh, he wasn't able to protect the strongest guy in the universe? That's crazy. What could he have done, pray tell? You tell me, Aklaima.
Teenagers.
Teenagers, am I right? They just want to kill you. And that, there's a song about that. In that case, she said, looking up at Musashi as he reached the top of the stairs, why don't you do it yourself, instead of flying my ship around, using my resources? Ioneer's not your ship, you little shit. I'll crush you. I'll crush your windpipe. As the leader of the 8 phases, Musashi said patiently, it's my duty to protect you. So long as I remain by your side, I can balance that with my own ambitions. Aklaima sneered. Protect me so you can defeat me, you mean? You realize that's what it'll come down to, right? If you want to win the Dawn contest? I'm surprised you don't just kill me in my sleep and get it over with. Cruel words came easily to the heir's lips, and yet Atoy Musashi could not find it in himself to rebuke her. He had forfeited that right on Elysian Fields 2 years ago. There was no denying that this was an uncomfortable position he'd put himself in, serving as the heir's bodyguard even as he strove to supplant her. Yeah, there you go. Even so, though. You read hostility where there is none, my heir, Musashi replied calmly, ignoring the bait. That is weak bait posting. If you'll excuse me. As Musashi turned to leave, Aklaima muttered up to one of the people standing alongside her. Look, you see that? He's running away. Aklaima wasn't alone, after all. Among the 8 phases, she never dared. To one side of the Supreme Heir stood the waning crescent moon, Anya Hapgrass, a short woman with frizzy hair and bright blue eyes. She wore suspenders over a shirt that, frankly, was far too small to require suspenders, and a pair of trousers that went in the absolute opposite direction. Far too baggy for someone of her size. So she's got, like, bell-bottoms and then, like, the Misty fit.
Exactly.
Okay. She put a gloved hand to her mouth and snickered at Aklaima's comment. To Aklaima's other side stood the 3rd quarter move, Endo Silver Saint. First of all, that's a great name. Fuck. Second of all, do the moons come in quarters? I thought it was...
Yeah, there's 8 phases.
I thought it was waxing crescent. I thought it was new moon, waxing crescent, half, waning... Hold on.
I'm going off a different list than you, I guess.
Oh! No, hold on. I'm used to the word gibbous instead. 3 quarters is also correct. I got mixed up. You're good. Honestly, 3 quarters sounds better than gibbous. To Aklaima's other side stood the 3rd quarter moon Endosa. But then what do you call it when it's, like, going down? 6th quarter?
Let me get the 8 phases that I'm going off of here.
Because usually it's new moon, waxing crescent, half moon, waxing gibbous, full moon, waning gibbous.
So the ones I'm going off of are new moon, waxing crescent, 1st quarter, waxing gibbous, full moon, waning gibbous, last quarter or 3rd quarter, and then waning crescent.
Oh, so the quarter is the half moon.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. To one side of the Supreme Heir, I keep getting lost.
Endo Silver Saint have come to bargain.
Endo Silver Saint, thank you. The knight stood tall and thin, clad from head to toe in gleaming plate armor, a white fur cloak wrapped around his shoulders. Musashi could not see Silver Saint's expression through the fluted helmet he always wore. What's a fluted helmet?
It's like a Dark Souls helmet. I'll send you a picture of it.
Is it the one where they have, like, the pointy nose?
Yeah, kind of like that.
Let me look up fluted helmet. I'm so sorry, guys. I'm obnoxious. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
It's John Dark Souls, essentially.
John Dark Souls, I got you. And just so saying, fluted helmet he always wore, but a sense of disapproval washed over him all the same. And when the Silver Saint spoke, those suspicions were confirmed. Wait, so that's both his title and his last name?
Oh, yeah. It's like Averman, who's sometimes called the Averman.
Oh. You disgrace your... what should his voice be?
It's maybe something like this.
You disgrace yourself with such tactics, Sir Muzazi, he said in a quiet voice. Yes, quiet, almost meek, and yet judgment radiated from every syllable. Can we give Muzazi credit? Like, at least his hires clearly aren't biased in his favor. There's no nepotism going on here. Fucking hell, dude. He literally hired more people to hate him. Does he ever get a break, Tan? Tan?
Muzazi works well when the world is against him.
I'm gonna... this is breaking my heart.
Muzazi's sad home life.
Where's Marie, man? It didn't used to be this way. Yes, judgment radiated. Was he referring to Muzazi's methods as commander of the 8 phases, or his conduct in the last battle? Impossible to tell, and asking was out of the question. Muzazi's frown deepened. He could ignore Aklima's snide tongue, and Anya's laughter meant nothing to him. But somehow he couldn't dismiss a male character. He couldn't dismiss Kendo Silver Saint quite as easily. It was like looking into an old mirror. Morgan bristled next to him. Careful now, he said softly. But Muzazi planted a firm hand on his shoulder and pulled him along. They would not escalate this. They had no right to. But still, he did not respond. He just continued to stride down the hallway, Morgan by his side, until the heir and her companions vanished from sight. Once he was certain they couldn't be heard anymore, Muzazi continued the conversation. Or, at least he tried to. Until we receive... So what are you going to do? Morgan asked, cutting him off. When it comes down to it, I mean, if you get to the finals? Muzazi swallowed. Once that point comes, he said stiffly, I will recluse myself. Don't worry, there won't be any conflict of interests. But there won't be any conflict of interest, Muzazi repeated more firmly. Until we receive word of the inner melee site, we'll stand by and operate as usual. As they walked, the spiraling wood began to transition into solid metal beneath their feet. The crew quarters, unlike the rest of the vessel, were artificial constructs that didn't change with Ioneer's whims. Tunnels became true hallways, and as they reached the meeting room, the arboreal orifices were replaced with actual doors. They slid open to welcome.
So with your question about how this all works, so basically there's like a smaller ship that Ioneer's wrapped around and provides like the second layer around.
Oh, so can he still detach and be a combatant, or is he just...
He could, yeah.
Okay, so he's not just the slipstream forever?
Well, at the moment he's the big ship, but he could change if he wanted to.
Hell yeah. I can stop anytime I want to, man. I'm not addicted
Just one
to
more
being a
starship trip.
else.
Just one more light point, bro.
Just one more symbiotic relationship, bro, please. They slid open to welcome them. No meeting had been called, so the room was fairly empty. Only Marcus Grace sat at the long metal table, his arms crossed, his cogitant gaze distant. This is the dad, right? Like
yeah,
the one
Winston's
guy.
dad.
The one normal Grace guy.
One normal cogitant.
He was just like a normal guy, right?
He's just like a pretty standard military guy.
Yeah. Muzazi nodded to the waxing gibbous moon. So you do use... Okay, right, the half of the quarters.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry I keep interrupting. I'm very...
This guy
it's a
doesn't
lot to
understand
take
the
in at
moon.
once. Muzazi nodded to the waxing gibbous moon as they approached. My condolences, he said softly. Oh no. Oh no. Marcus's gaze flicked up to regard Muzazi with those intense blue eyes. His white jacket was pulled right around his chest, and his white hair was cut close to his head. Marcus Grace wasn't the sort to give even his appearance leniency. I don't need condolences, Marcus replied. He's not dead. They had received troubling news earlier that day, just before the outer melee had commenced. News regarding Marcus's son, Winston Grace. The young man had been missing for nearly 3 months now. He'd gone to investigate the sequence of events in the Elysian Fields incident for the committee, and had seemingly dropped off the face of the world. Until today. A severed arm, confirmed to belong to the young detective, had been found in the slums of Obden. Marcus could cope as he wanted, but it didn't look good. That just confirms for me he's alive. If the author wanted me to know Winston Grace was dead, he would have written he was like fucking speared on a telephone pole, eyes rolled back into his head.
He got thrown into the TV.
A missing limb? Please, he's fine. In fact, he's probably on his way over as we speak.
He's in the building.
Yeah. Marcus could hope as he wanted, but it didn't look good. All the same, Musashi nodded respectfully, ignoring the contradiction within himself. Our hopes are with you. Marcus nodded, the movement barely perceptible. Appreciate it, he muttered. What Musashi had said was true. When he got right down to it, despite everything else, he did hope Winston was all right. He did hope he was found. He did hope that the arm did not spell his death. Fucking hell! Sorry. But his words were selfish as well. It would not do for Marcus Grace to resent it. Tan knows I was assaulted by a fly earlier that flew down my throat, and there's like 2 more buzzing around my face.
They long for defeat.
It's because it's fucking fall. They come into my goddamn house. He needed all the friends he could get, after all. The balance of power within the 8 phases of the turning of the air was a delicate thing. 2 of the founding members, Morgan Noct and Ioneer Yggdrasil, were firmly loyal to Musashi himself. The next 2, Ashdel Durin and Marcus Grace, could be loyal to either Musashi or Aklima, depending on the demands of their station in the situation. Needless to say, Anya Hapgrass and Endo Silversaint were firmly Aklima's people. That was why she'd brought them in, after all. So hold on. That's 6, plus him, that's 7. Who's the 8th? Tell me.
Keep reading.
How had things ended up like this? Musashi took a seat at the table, rubbing his temple with one hand. Ever since Elysian Fields, the relationship between himself and Aklima had grown more and more adversarial, until now, where he found himself considering her more of an obstacle than someone to protect. It wasn't even that she was wrong. He was using her resources for the purpose of taking the throne he was supposed to help her to. Silversaint wasn't wrong either. It was dishonorable to the extreme. But if he were to put his pride above doing what needed to be done for the benefit of the supremacy as a whole, what answers would he have for the corpses behind his eyelids? And so it was that he found himself playing politics against the little girl he'd sworn to keep safe. 2 moons on his side, 2 against, 2 that could swing either way, and 1 that wasn't so easily quantified. The doors slid open once more. Speak of the devil. Atoy Musashi looked up as the first quarter moon, Gregory Hazard, walked into the room. The man who shared Marie's name. His face, that blonde hair and those red eyes, bore a certain resemblance to her as well. For that reason, and another, he was a difficult man for Musashi to interact with. But she's a gene tyrant. How could he look like her? Unless she did that intentionally to like blend in his daughter.
He's like a young guy. He probably wouldn't be his daughter.
The other reason was that, well, yeah, but like people didn't know she was a gene tyrant.
Yeah,
so that was like the cover, wasn't it? Or was it like
Maybe.
That's my sister?
Could be.
Who knew? You have to tell me.
I'll tell you in the story.
The other reason was that Gregory Hazard was obviously a spy for the Ascendant General Alexandrius Toll. Gregory had previously left the Special Officers Commission to serve the military directly, and then returned once Musashi had started actively recruiting for the 8 phases. Musashi knew, and Gregory knew that Musashi knew. That was also why it was unclear what side he would take. It would surely depend on what best served the Ascendant General's interests, not any loyalty that Gregory himself felt. One hand was plunged into the pocket of Gregorio's baggy white coat as he approached. Gregorio?
Oh, sorry.
Gregorio! While the other held up a script. His crimson gaze was dull and disinterested as ever, and the boredom slipped out from his voice as he spoke. Boss. What was his voice again?
I don't remember his voice. He didn't talk that much in Dark 11 that much, but...
Boss.
Yeah,
said,
sounds right?
the words sounding insincere from his lips. Figured you might want to see this.
Maybe a bit... Not so slow, though, maybe.
Figured you might want to see this.
Yeah.
Before Musashi could even reply, Gregory had tossed the script over to him. He caught it, because of course he did, but still. Rude. His annoyance was quickly forgotten as he saw what was on the screen. Name got flagged up. Gregory offered an unnecessary explanation. List of victors. Musashi's eyes widened at that name, and at that name and face he hadn't expected to see again. Not after Elysian Fields. Dragon Hadrian. Popcorn. Popcorn.
Serendipity. Unified Alliance of Planets Capital. Seat of Man. He read the message. Operative is to infiltrate Supremacy territory and observe the conclusion of the Dawn contest from a close distance. Intelligence regarding Supreme candidates and their activities are to be relayed back to Command regularly. Additional orders may be enacted in the field. It was rare for orders to be printed on paper these days. 3 sentences in bold ink typed across the memo held between 2 hands. The implication was obvious. These were orders to be read only once. After that, they had to vanish from this world. In the modern world, paper existed to be burnt. Before the elevator reached its destination, Rufus von Frostburn snapped his fingers, and the memo was immediately devoured by a tiny spark of flame. Can I at least get you to read the title cards for these guys?
Yeah. What announcer voice should I use?
Imagine, like, Yakuza. You know, like a Yakuza character walks in and goes...
Give me an example.
But they never read it out, just sort of like... Just give me a dramatic voice.
Nebula 5, Rufus von Frostburn,
maybe.
the supernova. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Maybe more like this. Maybe even All Might.
Bum bum bum. Ho ho ho! Midoriya Shonen. Nebula 5, Rufus von Frostburn, the supernova. Nebula of Aldrust. How's that?
That's great. Rufus waved away the smoke with a leather-gloved hand. He wasn't particularly well dressed for a meeting in the seat of man. The gathering place for the Central Governing Council of the Unified Alliance of Planets. His long red hair hung down his shoulders, and his black fur coat was a far cry from the expected business suit, especially since it was open in the middle, exposing his burnt chest. The closest thing to a real badge of office was the tiny 5 pin he wore on his lapel. The 10 Nebula of the Unified Alliance of Planets were ranked by strength, and since he'd been assigned this role 4 years ago, Rufus had occupied the office of Nebula 5. He didn't much mind it. He wasn't low enough that people thought he was weak, or human garbage like Nebula 10, and he wasn't high enough to inspire tiring envy. It was a comfy spot, usually kept him out of trouble. Usually, but not always. Rufus realised that the second the elevator opened. Waiting for him in the hallways was Beckett Delbrainen. The other man was already glaring at him as he arrived, clad in gnarled white armour, his similarly white hair tied behind his head. Like most people from Brainen, Beckett had scurrin blood. The distinct shade of grey came out strongly in his skin, making him look almost like a living statue. The only thing that came close to colour on him were his pugnant golden eyes. Generally speaking, it was impossible for a human to belong to more than one of the subspecies. The gene tyrants had programmed their genetics that way. The only known exceptions were crosses between one of the main 3 and scurrants. So it was that the people of Brainen obtained their distinctive appearance and strength. Between them and beyond them, light shone in through the window that made up an entire wall of the curving hallway. The towering spires...
Wait, does that mean he's the same type of stand as Fix?
No, he's just like a scurrant and also a pugnant, basically.
Oh, but wasn't Fix also like a grey guy?
Yeah, but he was like a guy that was basically like a mega pugnant.
Gotcha.
He was a better version of the pugnant rather than pugnant and something else.
I'm you, but strong.
Exactly. Between them and beyond them, light shone in through the window that made up an entire wall of the curving hallway. The towering spires of Serendipity gleamed in the sunlight, the twinkling dots of traffic zooming through the sky. It was a shame that Beckett's expression was so dark in comparison. "Hey, asshole," Beckett said as Rufus stepped out the elevator. "You've got your orders, right? Show me." Rufus hesitated. Beckett knew about that? Huh? He blinked. Was I not supposed to burn it? Beckett clearly hadn't expected Rufus to come back with that. The hostility in his face actually vanished for a moment as he furrowed his brow in genuine confusion. "What?" Rufus said awkwardly. I thought it was on paper because I was meant to burn it when I was done reading it, so, I did. In the elevator. Just now. Sorry. What the fuck? Sorry. Rufus repeated.
Hey, they're high-ranking government officials. That's a reasonable assumption.
Tension crept throughout Rufus's body. It wasn't that he was intimidated by Beckett, the numbers spoke for themselves, but he was very much aware that the way he messed up would reflect badly on Agnes. His sister in his homeworld hadn't been part of the governing council for very long. He couldn't risk anything that would jeopardise her position. She was the brains and he was the brawn. They were meant to work together, not sabotage each other. Even if he'd burnt the orders, though, he still remembered them. Every word. He wasn't so stupid that he couldn't manage that. Beckett groaned, as if trying to will the entire previous conversation out of history by sheer force of annoyance.
That's a good change.
Let's cut to the chase, he says.
Yo!
And on cue, 5 claws of bone extended out from the tips of his fingers. Blood dripping from him menacingly. How come a dumbass like you is being given this assignment?
I hate that I can never show the person that Bone Claws is relevant to this. That's so good. Bum, 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 bum! That's my imitation of the Yakuza drums. Midoriya Shonen. Nebula 6, Beckett Del Brainon. Underframe. Nebula of Brainon.
He really needs to give a good impression, he knew, but Rufus von Frostburn couldn't just let that go. Despite his best efforts, a smug-fanged grin spread across his lips. What? He chuckled. You jealous? The reaction was immediate and predictable. Beckett's eyes widened, his nostrils flared, and a red flush of anger began to trickle over his grey skin. He stepped forward to get right into Rufus's face, but before he could do anything, he was interrupted. Come on now, boys, drawled the young woman standing between them. No fighting. The woman wore a 10-gallon hat over her dirty blonde hair and thick aviator sunglasses over her dark blue eyes. Denim shorts and a blue and yellow pilot jacket made her seem like she was more suited to a costume party than anything else, but Rufus supposed he wasn't one to talk. Besides, even if she was relatively new, the mercenaries the Maria State had as their Nebula representative were always formidable. Yep, what a scary lady. Rufus only noticed she was there once she'd spoken, after she'd already planted the barrel of a revolver against each of their temples.
So the number goes up or down based on, like, their achievements and strength?
Yeah, so 1 would be strongest, 10 would be weakest.
Okay, so, like, she's not locked at 8 forever, that's just because
there's like a analysis every now and then.
Oh. Midoriya Shonen. Nebula 8, May Miracle, the Nowhere Woman. Nebula of the Marais State.
Try it, bitch, Beckett snarled, eyes flicking over to regard the woman holding it at gunpoint. See how far that thing makes it through my skull. May's mouth twisted into a lupine smirk. Well, I am a gambling girl, she said. I'm afraid we got a prior engagement, hon. She slipped her revolvers back into the holsters at her hips. We're waiting for you boys in the assembly hall.
Good Day is gonna go nuts over this.
Meeting hall? Rufus frowned. I didn't know the governing council had been called together. Beckett rolled his eyes as he cracked his neck. You'd have heard about it if the most powerful people in UAP were gathering together, dumbass. Think about it for a minute. It's just us Nebula today. Rufus's frown deepened. Why? That roll of the eyes transitioned smoothly into a piercing glare, to make sure you don't fuck things up. Can I pop one to you for the last bit?
Yeah, hell yeah. Sorry. The meeting hall in the Seat of Man was quite the sight to behold. A wide round table with 10 seats all around it, the UAP flag shining down onto its surface as a projection from above. Really, though, that wasn't the impressive part. What's the flag look like?
We'll find out when I draw it later.
All around the table, outside of the reach of that spotlight, was the void of space, stars and systems swirling around the meeting room like the galaxy in miniature. Rufus had once asked his sister about the purpose of these holograms. According to her, it was so the council could see the world their decisions would affect at all times. He didn't really get it. I'm just thinking of that One Piece line about the Navy. It's like, you can't see lives on a map. Usually the Central Governing Council themselves would be the ones using this space, but it seemed the Nebula had decided to make use of it for an impromptu meeting of their own. As the three of them, Rufus, Beckett, and May, entered the room, the man who'd taken his seat at the head of the table looked up at them. I see you managed to find them, Miss Miracle, he said, voice stern and clipped. I trust that was before they did anything foolish? The man looked like... There was no nice way to say it. The man looked like a clown. Oh my god, he's chomping Wu Ming's bit. Chalk white skin, bright green hair, a garish red jumpsuit. Hell, even his nose was engorged in crimson. The only thing he was missing was a smile. Rufus had never seen anything but a deep scowl on the older man's sallow face. Nebula 3, Tomfoolery! Master of the Killing Arts, Nebula of Paradoxia. Tan, describe... Is this like a Buggy situation where that's his real nose?
He's a scurrant, yes.
Oh no, he's a clown scurrant. What fruit did he eat?
He didn't eat fruit, he simply studied the fist.
The human body was a machine. Few excelled at breaking it quite like tomfoolery. Nebula 3 nodded at May as she took her seat on the other side of the table. Then, those perpetually disapproving gray pupils flicked over to target Rufus and Beckett. Are you going to stand there all day? He asked. Neither of them were quite brave enough to argue, and quickly took their seats as well. Beckett grumbled a little, but that was the extent of his complaining. A rare occasion when Nebula 6 chose to shut his mouth. Tom noticed it as well. It seems our young Master Beckett has been chastened, Miss Miracle. Your doing? May nodded. It seems your prediction was correct then, Luna, Tom grunted. But that is to be expected. Sitting next to May was a young girl, maybe 10 or 11, clad in black robes so thick she almost looked spherical. What the fuck? The supremacy using children. That was already bad. The UAP too?
She's not combative, if that helps.
Still? Aren't the Nebula bodyguards?
They're like agents, not operatives. They can be bodyguards.
Tan does not give a fuck about child labor laws.
Of course I don't. British.
A metal mask covered her face, dotted with dozens of tiny red sensors, as if the child was looking out at the world through countless staring eyes. Hold on, I haven't scrolled down yet, but I'm guessing she's from Abrafacade.
Keep reading.
Alright, Rufus couldn't help... Hell yeah! Rufus couldn't help but shudder. He'd known Luna was here before even seeing her. The kid had a disturbing habit of whispering people's words a split second before they actually said them. That pre-echo had given her away. Nebula 9, Luna, the all-seeing. Nebula of Abrafacade. So, Rufus spoke up in the hollowed chamber for the first time, looking around at the other people in the room. What's the occasion? How come I've got all the Nebula lined up in front of me? Not all, Tom corrected him. Neither Nebula 1 or 10 are present. 4 and 7 are unoccupied slots. Well, yeah, Rufus acknowledged, but 10 doesn't count. He's human garbage. Indeed. At any rate, the reason we're meeting, as I'm sure you do know, Master Rufus, is because of the orders you've received. I'm gonna guess that 10 is either, like, someone who's, like, nepotismed into his position, or he's, like, literally a pile of garbage or some shit. Rufus furrowed his brow. I don't get it. These are meant to be secret. How come you all know about them? Tom didn't reply. Instead, the answer came from next to him. You're not the only one who received them, said a quiet voice. The man who spoke was dark-skinned and black-haired dreadlocks hanging low down his back. Would it be hung low down his back? He was thin and lithe, arms crossed in front of him, crimson eyes regarding Rufus calmly. The sheer black armor he wore was ceremonial. The fact that his muscular midriff was completely exposed was proof enough of that. Above his head floated a red halo, transparent, formed from a substance resembling smooth red crystal. His principality. The collective aether ability of the how do I pronounce this? Inganshi people. This was one of the few among the 10 Nebula that Rufus could consider a genuine friend. Help me pronounce this, I don't want to fuck it up.
Jamilu Aguta?
Jamilu Aguta. Nebula 2, bearer of the demon spear. Jamilu Aguta, Nebula of Inganshi. Rufus regarded the long golden spear on Idrios's lap.
Oh, sorry, his name changed during writing.
On Jamilu's lap warily. The thing almost seemed to hum with barely constrained malice. He knew full well that Jamilu could control it, but it didn't make him any less tense, standing so close to one of the old demons of the dawn. Oh fuck, it's one of those? The Berserkers?
Well, yeah. So, what do you understand it to be? Out of curiosity.
So you told me about how the Berserkers of the old dawn, old demons, they like put their consciousness in these weapons.
Yeah.
Like these ancient artifacts. But like the fact that he's still him, presumably is what he means by control it. Like he hasn't been taken over by that ancient supremacy warrior.
Well, that's ancient anti-supremacy warrior.
Wait, anti-supremacy?
Yeah, they became like crazy powerful weapons to fight the supremacy.
Oh! I thought they served the supremacy in the war.
No, they were against them.
Oh, that's cool as fuck.
They became monsters for their ideals.
That's so cool! I love Aetheral Space, bros. What do you mean I'm not the only one? Rufus asked, looking down at the table at the other man. I'm to accompany you, Jamilu replied simply. Our mission is the same. The briefing read, additional orders may be enacted in the field. I need to be certain you understand the implication. Rufus shrugged, looking around uneasily. It means what it says, right? If something comes up, they might give us more orders? Jamilu shook his head. It's not if something comes up, Rufus. It has already been decided that something will come up. Huh? We're not going to the Supremacy to observe who the next Supreme will be, he explained patiently. We are going to decide it. Next we have Grand Roo, not related to Grand Blue. Supremacy, farming world. So, whispered Elias, leaning up to the taller Alice as the two of them descended the landing ramp. Who's this Dragon Hadrian guy, anyway? Alice glanced.
I just realised his name is Alice. It changed in between chapters.
Alice glanced down at him. Alice and Alice, I see. The hangar they'd landed in was a public one, but fairly empty, so she spoke freely. Oh, you wouldn't know, would you? She said.
Maybe wouldn't go for Texan.
Well, I thought this was a farming world.
They've visited. These are the people from Roof's Grove.
Oh! Oh, wait, hold on. What should their voices be, then?
One of them was sort of the video gamer that was always just sort of mumbling. And the other was the one who's been playing on the phone, if you recall.
Yeah. So, who's this Dragon Hadrian guy, anyway? Alice glanced down at him. The hangar they'd landed in was a public one, but fairly empty, so she spoke freely. Oh, you wouldn't know, would you? She said. Before the boss lady set up Restorosian Road, she used to be part of another crew, along with the ventriloquist and this Hadrian guy. They got split up, I guess, and Hadrian's been missing ever since. A couple of times the ventriloquists roped us into some kind of snipe hunt to do with this, but... She blinked. Wait, you were there for that, asshole! You should know this! Oh, Alice muttered disinterestedly. It was? You're right, he's the pilot guy. Ruth ignored the argument quickly brewing behind her. She had something much more interesting to look at. There, waiting for her at the entrance to the hangar, stood two of her best friends in the world, Serena and Bruno Delset. It feels weird to hear their names in that order.
And that's what Ruth would have ordered them.
Based. It wasn't like they'd always been there for each other these last 2 years, but still, it was damn good to see them. Bruno's mouth spread into a thin smile, and Serena spread it even further into a wild grin. Before Ruth could so much as say hello, the girl was already charging towards her for a hug. Oh my god, Ruth getting glomped? Roman glanced towards Rax, who just nodded. This wasn't something the mercenary had to worry about.
Do I kill her?
Even with What? Even with Aether, the force of Serena's embrace almost bowled Ruth over. She laughed as she gripped the other woman by the shoulders, managing to push her away just the slightest bit. Enough to breathe, if nothing else. Easy, easy, Ruth chuckled before her smile faded. So, what's this plan you've got to find Dragon? Serena's smile didn't so much as slacken. We looked into it, Miss Ruth. We still have time before the inner melees. 6 more outer ones to go. Until the inner melee starts, the locations are kept under heavy guard. But if they're under guard... Finally, the smile reduced itself to Bruno's self-assured smirk. Ruth found herself reminded of the moments that had come right before one of Skipper's foolproof plans. A shudder went down her spine. Bruno finished his sister's sentence. Then all we have to do is steal it. Which one's Roman again?
Roman is sort of the one that didn't say much. He didn't have a line. He just sort of nodded. He's got like the soul gem. He's a very serious sort of mercenary guy who's recently joined up.
Voice undetermined. That was fun.
Yeah. We're still in the setup phase of the arc, of course, but...
I'll say this. I've been in the setup phase of previous Aetheral Space arcs. This one's fun. And I think what's doing it for me is that there's so much world building happening.
Yeah, this is the introduction to Nebula is something I've wanted to get to for a while.
Well, also I think the time skip helps because there's like all this like alluding to things that have happened or changed, and it kind of keeps the interest high. Oh man, it's so cool to meet the Nebula. I love the title card visual too, like the boom, 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 boom.
Yeah, there's sort of like a bit of a superhero theme going on with them as well.
You got to get a theme song for each of them now. Okay, so here is my question.
Okay.
World building question. Who is the most famous nebula in history?
The first famous nebula in history. It's probably going to be the current Nebula 1.
Ooh, okay.
Who's like the strongest person in the UAP, basically.
Even of all history? Because how long have the Nebula been a thing for?
They've been a thing in some form or another for the last, like, 100 years or so.
Ah, okay. And then let me get a question from the thread.
So Nebula 1 you would basically consider as the UAP Supreme. In terms of strength.
Oh, in terms of strength. Okay. Let's see. Okay.
Not quite as strong, but in terms of what rank he would have occupied.
No, you're good. I was just looking up in our questions thread. Blur asks, how do you make Aetheral Space weapon-grade plasma? Do they need, like, special chemicals plants or factories or something? Are there any interesting ingredients or resources needed to make it?
You would have basically a quote-unquote plasma brewery to, like, make the actual ammunition, basically. It can also be used as fuel, so that it's not solely for ammunition, but, I don't know, couldn't tell you how to make it, because I don't fucking know.
JT asks, who makes the scripts?
The scripts, well, it depends. It's like a phone, basically. Many people would make them.
Tell us some of the most popular script makers, like the Apple and Samsung.
Halcyon Communications, which is a subsidiary of Halcyon Interstellar.
We know about them already. They're like the news people.
Yeah. Well, that's one of those subdivisions as well. They're like the biggest company in the
supremacy. So they're like the Waystar Royco.
Exactly. They're the biggest like megacorp in the supremacy. They also like make a lot of the military's weaponry.
Wow, they really have their finger in every fucking pie.
They actually
talk about a mega corporation.
This is a bit of lore as well. So they used to be part of the Great Chain, but during the war they betrayed the Great Chain and switched over to supremacy and got mega rewards for it.
Oh, that is evil! Fucking, oh my god. I'm just imagining what's that song, The Reigns of
Constantine? Yeah, exactly.
Fucking Red Wedding. It's like, thanks for having us, Halcyon. We're so worried about this war. The doors close. Is that so? Fire the cannons. Alright, well I think that's it for questions. I loved that so much. I'm especially interested in the Demon Spear. That's so fucking cool. Oh my god, but they're all so cool so far. I'm happy I called the Abra Facade, but I don't feel super smart for it because you kind of hinted to it with, like, just according to your prediction. I was like, this is going to be the Abra Facade.
Yeah, they're known for masks and telling the future.
Yeah, that's their two things. I can't wait to meet a normal person for Abra Facade. They're like, of course I don't know how to tell the future. I'm just a guy.
Well, Rex is seemingly normal.
I'm Dick Richards. He's from Abra Facade?
Yeah, that's why he wears the mask.
Oh, is it like a religious thing?
Well, yeah.
Or do they all fucked up faces?
Well, basically, it's like they consider like the mask to be a more honest face. Like that's what he presents to the world.
Oh, his mask is cute. It's got the little things.
Yeah.
Oh man. Speaking of Rex, I know some people are already talking about shipping him with Ruth.
Oh, you can do as you will.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that's it for this one. That was fun. I can't wait for 12.4.
Yeah.
Viewers, as always, thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.